Right, it is 1 o'clock, so I reckon we'll just get started right on the dot, and people can come and go as you see fit. So anything, well, welcome. Nice to see everyone. Looks like we're going to have a pretty big crowd. This will be one of the biggest e-training sessions I think I've done. My goodness. Yeah, so welcome everyone to our, well, I don't even know how many of these we've done. This is going to be the start of a series that we're going to do every week, pretty much for the duration of lockdown. So we'll have some social interaction with someone outside of work to an extent. We've earmarked them for Tuesdays. So I will ask, if you're not muted, could you go ahead and mute yourself now?
Yeah, I don't know why
good Lord, there's heaps of people. This is great.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Siobhan.
Hi, Laura. How's it going?
It's good. It's good. Right, so we're just getting started. So if you've just signed in, could you just do me a favor and just go ahead and mute your microphone so we don't have any background crackling through. If you have any questions, feel free to
do that.
And if I'm talking too fast, again, just tell me to slow down. So this is going to be a really short session. I've got a quick demo module that I've put together, and we'll run through what it looks like and how I built it, and a little bit of the resources that I used while I was doing that, and more or less just to show you ways that you can offer on the platform that may be a little bit different from how you normally do. And again, if you have any questions at the end, we'll pause for a big chat. So without further ado, I will switch my screen to share. Keep you guys down there. All right, so the module that I've put together for your viewing pleasure today is on nephology. Nephology is the study of clouds. So I felt this was appropriate. This is something we can all do if we have a window. So feel free to join in and experience some nephology in your own house. So this has got a nice clean title slide, a little bit of an introduction as to what it actually is, an embedded video that runs you through some examples of clouds and kind of the history on the subject itself, an example of a question, and then an example of a way that you can have a nice layout where there's just text and nothing else fancy on it. So I'll go through and show you how I've built each of these in order, and we'll leave this one up for comparison as we go. Did someone have a question? No? Okay. So what I've done for starters, I had to come up with a topic, so came up with something and did a wee bit of research. In the process of doing that, I came across this very lovely article by the New York Times on an amateur cloud society. I've used a little bit of stuff from Wikipedia. Everyone's pretty familiar with that. And then the images that I've used are all pulled from Unsplash. So if you've not heard me talk about Unsplash before, this is a really great website where amateur photographers, professional photographers, anybody who takes a nice photo can put it up here and make it available for you to use freely without any charge. The images are high quality, they're pretty big. It's a great place to come for imagery if you're a bit stuck and you don't have access to your own stock photo site. The one thing that they ask is that you say thanks by including some sort of credit to the original producer of the work. And I'll show you how to embed one of these badges in a second once we get started. So what I've got is 3 photos that I've pulled down from this website and just some text that I have a mixture of me writing it myself and a mixture of copying and pasting. The important thing that I want to point out here is that you need to have permission to use photos that aren't yours, hence why Unsplash is great, because permission's granted provided that you consider, you don't have to again, but provided that you include a little bit of, nod to the author. If you are copying something directly from a resource, so for example, this paragraph here, this is a direct copy from the article on the Amateur Cloud Society. So for that one, I've included a little bit of a drawback to reference where that came from. I know a lot of times people get stuck on how can I develop content really quickly? How do I write it really quickly? And sometimes the best choice that you may have is to copy something from a specific source. your organization will likely have your own requirements on what you can use from other places, especially if you charge for access to these items. So if you work for an educational facility, for example, I'm pretty sure there's some regulations around how things can be used in that fashion. So if you get stuck on, do I have permission? I would look internally first and see what your rules are with your own organization. Beyond that, you can get in touch with us and we can give you a little bit of guidance. We're not a legal institution by any stretch of the imagination, but we can at least point you in the right direction as to whether or not it's usable or not. So starting out, we have the title slide. So this is 3 different cells. You have a background image, you have a title text block, and a little subtext block. So the way that I've created this is finding that image. So I've already downloaded that to this account. And what we'll do is we'll go through and make it the size that we want it to be. So when I grab that image initially, this is the first version that it appears as. So you can look over here and see what the actual size is. So this is 5,472 pixels by 3,735. Very, very big, which is great. It gives us a lot of room to play with and a lot of space that we can use. Much too big to put directly on a slide. If I put that on a slide straight away, it is going to take ages to load and will likely be quite fuzzy because the system will have to render it again in a smaller format. So the way that I get around that is by resizing it and playing around with the ratio that I want to have in the display. So what I've done, if we go back to the example here, you can see that I've actually taken the image and instead of making it exactly the same kind of layout but smaller, I've actually focused in further on this kind of cloud area in the middle because I want to use that as a nice backdrop. And it gives me more black area down here to put my text on. So if I were to just resize this to fit within a slide, you would resize it so that it was 950 pixels wide by 600 pixels high. So to do that, I'll show you again. When you're in your media management area, you can see that there's a little edit link over here on the preview. When you click that, there's an actual in-system image editor that you can use. And these are a couple of different options of things that you can play around with. So for resizing, you just select resize, and then you pick the width or the height that you want. The key here is if you want your image to fill a specific area, the width or the height of that image, whichever one is going to be the constraint, needs to be accurate. So for example, if I say I want to try and fit this whole thing in, so we'll say that width is 950. And you can check and see if your height is still within your range. So my height needs to be 600 and I'm over 600, which is great because that means that I've got room to work with. If for some reason, as an example, let's say I said, oh, well, I'll set the height first. So if I set the height to 600, you'll see that the width now comes in with that ratio that this image has at 879. And that means that it's not going to be wide enough to fill the slide. So you may need to play around when you're resizing to ensure that you've got the image at the right ratio so that it's going to actually fill the slide. But ultimately, your width needs to be 950 and your height needs to be 600. So for this image, we want to set the width to 950. And then we would go back and crop that so that it was 600. So if I go to crop after this, I'll change the height to 600, like so. And now the image has been cropped and resized so that it will fit nicely on a slide. So from here, if I was happy with this layout, I would just click upload and a copied version of this will sit in my media management area. However, like I mentioned in the beginning, I actually don't want that. I want this cloud to be much bigger. And that means that I need to maintain more of the original image and change how I'm cropping it so that it fits within the slide a little bit easier. So if I cancel that one and we go back to this resize option, if I want the image to be bigger, I need to make these numbers bigger. So for the resize side of it, let's say we want to have this at more like 1800. And you can actually zoom out a little bit so you can see what you're working with. I think that's going to be a little bit too big, so we might drop it down to 1000. 100, stretch 1200. And then you'll see that the height's still quite big. So fiddling around with that, you end up with something that'll fit roughly within what you're looking for. And then you'll change how you crop it. So for cropping, you've got the option to crop directly off the left and the top, and then you can adjust the width and height from there. Sometimes what I'll do is change the width and the height to what I want. And you can see this is a little bit off center. So then I'll adjust with whatever I have to do for the top and the bottom. So you can kind of recenter the image by playing around with these numbers. Once you get it where you want it, again, click upload and you're off and running, and it adds a copy to what you've got. So the one that I prepared earlier is focused in on that cloud. So we want that one. We'll double click and pop that in place. Center it on the slide. Now this is going to be a background image that I'm going to use. So I will make this into a master page by clicking Make Master. And you'll see that that slide now sits over here to the left and has got the title beneath it in Master 1. So from here, I'll go in and create the text. So I will apply that master page to this new slide by going over here to Master Page and selecting Master 1. My nice image shows up. And the point of that means effectively that I've created an image in the background that I won't run the risk of clicking on. I find that I prefer to run it this way because most of the time I'm trying to make a new cell. And to do that, you need to be able to double click. And if you have a background image there, when you double click, you're actually just going to be selecting that image, so you don't get anything done. So I find that makes my job a little bit easier if I make it into a master slide and apply it. So we've got Nephology is the title, Nephology, and needs to be all caps. And I want to center that, and it's going to sit down here, but I need it to be much bigger and whiter. So for this particular site that we have, one of the presets is this title font. That's nice and big, but it's the wrong color, but that's okay. So I can swap that to white. And then my subtitle was Let's Learn About Clouds. And that one again will center and smush it down here on the bottom and change the color to white. So initially looking at that, it's not overly impressive, it's a little bit small. So I might open this up just a wee bit and increase the sizing on that so that it stands out a little bit. Right, there is your title slide. Now, moving on from here.
Hey, Lauren.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's Dana here from Yachting New Zealand.
Hey, Dana.
How are you? I was working yesterday on something, and I had a couple of instances where, like, text modules, I couldn't just click on them and change it. Like, if I tried to change the color, it wasn't actually applying.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea why that might happen?
Yes, I do. I know exactly what you're talking about. So for that scenario, what's happened is, I don't know that I'll be able to replicate it, but I can at least show you how you can fix it. What's happening is you've got a piece of cell that you've created, and someone has gone through and applied some sort of format to it somewhere, either within the cell using these tools, or it's had a theme applied to it or something that is overriding the ability to change that theme again. So what I tend to do with those is select the cell and use this A here to clear the font styles. You may need to go through and double click on the actual text, highlight everything and clear the font styles again to get it back to square one. But once you have it there, you can go and reapply a theme, or you should be able to change the color. So it's a little bit of finicky work, and that tends to happen with the clients that we have who've got older modules, and you guys, you would fall into that category because you've got stuff that's been on the system for ages. So that's kind of what's going on in the background. There's just some sort of a CSS application that occurred in one of the older versions that needs to be cleared out before you can assign a new color to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's it. So just basically take away the formatting that's applied. Yep. And start again.
Yep, clear it out. And if for some reason none of that works, I find sometimes I just have to cut all of the text out, put it in a new cell, and then it's fine. So there may just be something funny about that old cell.
Yeah, that's how I was doing it, but I was wondering if there was a faster way.
Yeah, no, sorry, that's all I've got on that one.
Thank you.
No worries, no worries. Okay, so this next slide we're going to make is just another kind of example of some text on an image. So again, when I'm looking through these images and I'm looking for something to use as a backdrop, what I need is clear space. So something like this is too busy. You've got too much contrast floating around with all the cloud images and the shadow. you need something that has a background that you can put text on. This one would be great. You've got enough clear, clean background for the sky. That one would be great. So there's a lot of different options. You can really quickly kind of get a sense for what you need after you fiddle around with it for a while, and eventually you'll find the kind of image that you're looking for. So for this one, I think she was a little bit further down here somewhere. Regardless, let's say I've downloaded it. On Unsplash, you'll get a little icon that'll pop up after you've downloaded it just to remind you to say thank you. And the way that you can do this on our system is by embedding a credit badge. So for this site, you'll click this link, embed a credit badge, and that will give you HTML code that you can copy. So put your mouse down there and click, and it highlights everything for you. Copy that HTML, and then on the slide itself, double click and go over here to view and source code. Now that gives you access to the back end of that particular cell where you can put in raw code. So if I paste that and then turn source code off, what I get is this nice little badge that Unsplash has designed themselves that just is an external link that takes you back to that photo. So that's a really quick way that you can use their own tools to kind of throw back to that author to say, hey, thanks, you made that photo and it was really great. Just as an aside there, keep that one in mind. So for this one, we've got a background image. We have some text kind of scattered around. So very much the same again. We'll go to add, media, image. And you'll see here this image that I found originally, again, quite big, but I like the layout. You don't need to change anything fancy about it. So I've just resized it to be 950 by 600. Double click, add it in place. And then we'll go to layout and we'll send it to the back. And then we'll turn that one into a master page as well, because that's our background. And we will make a new blank and we'll apply that master page. And then I'll come in and I'll say the top title text, I'm grabbing this off of another window that you can't see, is contemplate the clouds. So in default mode, quite small. So we'll go over here and make it really big. And I usually will play around with the cells a little bit just to kind of figure out how I want the words to wrap. And then we add the bottom little bit of information in a new cell. So, and that one was roughly there. So for this one, I want to highlight some keywords. One of them is nephology, and then the other bit is what nephology actually is. So it's a study of clouds and cloud formations. Now that is also a little bit small, so I'm going to increase that one to say 22-ish. And again, this is something you just play around with until you find what you like. So now we have a really nice little intro into the concept of nephology. Now from here, there are heaps of people who have made lovely videos about nephology, about clouds. What you want to find if you're looking for a quick way to get information across is a nice short video that gives you a little bit of information on the topic, but isn't pitched over the heads of the person that you're trying to write this for. So you don't need an in-depth breakdown on the chemical makeup of a cloud. You want a really quick video that's just going to show some basics. So I hunted around on YouTube for about 5 seconds and came across this really great video by Ted Ed. These are great videos, and occasionally you will find one that will fit with the topic that you're trying to get across. I was lucky enough to find one on clouds, so we ran with that. So for this, we're going to embed this YouTube video in the module. So you'll copy the URL, pop back to your module, you will make a new slide, go to add, media, YouTube. This also works with Vimeo, fair point. Paste the URL right there in the middle. Now I want this video to feel like it's kind of the whole slide. I don't want any introductory text to it, I just want them to see the video. So I'll make it as big as I can without it kind of going over the edge, center it, and then we'll have a look at what that looks like. Now, I personally don't like having a white backdrop because it just kind of creates a weird effect with the lines and it feels very segmented. So on the videos that I play full screen, I will actually go to that page and put a black background on it so you feel a little bit more like you're in a cinema in a roundabout way. And then you get this effect where it's this nice video that plays really cleanly on its own embedded area. You can make that whatever color you wanted. Black tends to be best because you get some nice contrast off of it. And that was your video. So that's done. That was nice and quick. So what I want to do now is make a question slide. So for the example, go video. So we're going to make this kind of question layout. Now what you'll see here is I've got a background, but I have a little bit of foreground going on that's kind of covering up this shape that I'm using as a backdrop for the question. So this looks way more interesting than just having a little gray box in the middle of a slide. And it's actually really easy to set up with the tools that we have available already. So the key here, and what you need to kind of realize, is that this is made up of 3 different layers. You have one layer that is the full image as the background. You have a middle layer that is the rectangle that is the shape. And then you have a top layer that is this foreground bit of the same background image, cut off of the background image and made into a PNG with some transparency on it. So looking at this on the how we construct it side of things, we're going to make another slide that we'll create as a master page. So we'll go blank, and this is where we set our layers up. So what I did for this one is find a photo that I can crop the edging off of, and that was this one that I've downloaded recently. So what you're looking for, here is something that has a nice crisp area of backdrop to it. This one would work as well. I think it's the same author, different photo. But what I'm finding is that you've got a nice clear bit of white here in the background. You want something that's going to have something that looks like a single color that you can crop off, because we've got an editor in the system that you can pick out like a specific shade of color and remove that from the photo. So that's what I'm looking for with things like this, is not only an image that gives me enough space to put a cell on that I could put a question in, but also one that has a backdrop to it that I could remove easily. So another example I think would be this one up here at the very top. This one would probably work beautifully for this as well. And again, this is something you can play around with. So the way that I've built it, going to image, this is the first one that I uploaded. So this is the really big one. So I've taken that one and I've said, I want that to be much, much smaller. I want it to fit in my cell. So I resized that one to 950 by 600 as per usual. The other thing that I've done is resized it and then removed this white area. So the way that I did that using the original is we go to edit. First, we resize it. And same again, I will put in 950. Again, the height is still over 600, so that's great. So all I need to do is crop that to 600. So now I have my backdrop image. So now what I want to do is remove this white area. So if you go to this tool called background, the system will select a specific color and render it transparent. The default color that it selects is white. The hex code for white is #FFF. Threshold is kind of like the amount, like the percentage of the whiteness you want to remove. If you want to set that as a different color, you can click set and you'll get little crosshairs, so you can pick the blue. So you can see that it doesn't grab all of the blue, it'll only grab blues that are close to that specific hex code, which is why the white works really nicely. And that's the effect that I want anyway. Again, we're referring back to our little sandwich thing that we're trying to create. So once I've resized it and removed the white part of the background, again, I click upload, and you'll see that what I now have is on preview, where all of these little checkerboards are, that's clear of the transparent cell. So this is what I want, this is good. So we'll build this up in order now. So we'll have a background, which is the full image background. Pop that there. And now I'm gonna add my shape. And I want my shape to take up, a fair amount of space, roughly like that. I will like that to be on a white background with no border. So that's the middle bit of my sandwich. And now I'm going to come and add the top part, which is this cropped image with the transparency applied. So when I put that one in place, again, you'll have to kind of jig it around so that it's centered again. What you get is this really nice overlay effect that makes the kind of background for your question feel more like it's been stuffed in between those clouds, which is the effect that I was going for. I've seen people do this with lots of natural backgrounds and it works really, really well. Other examples are like an image of the surf coming in that's shot from a bird's eye view. You can crop the sand out and have the surf kind of coming up over the backdrop that you're trying to create. This is an effect that gets used often in magazine layouts. It's photo editing. Pretty common concept in photo editing is creating the effect of layers to make something look like it has depth. So once I've got that, we do the same again. We go master page, make a master. That is now my backdrop. I will come up to the end of my module, make a blank slide. I will apply my new master page, and then I'll come in and add my question. So question that I've got are, which of the following are types of clouds? And I like to make my questions stand out a little bit, so I tend to apply some sort of a different theme to them. I don't really like this green though. I want the green to be more of a blue. And I've mentioned this before. There's a tool that you can get in Google Chrome that you can add as an addition to your toolbar called Color Pick Eyedropper. If I click that, what I get is the ability to find the hex code for any color that appears on this page. In this case, I want to grab some of the blue from the clouds. So I move my crosshairs down there. And when I click, what I get is the hex code for that exact color. So I will copy that, close my color pick, come back to my cell. Under color, I will put that hex code in right here at the top and click OK. And now that blue will exactly match the blue that I grabbed before. Creates a really nice cohesive effect. From here, we're just going to add in a question as per usual and stick that one right there. I won't bother adding the answers. You guys should have a rough idea on how to do that. If you're lost and you don't remember, double click. You'll get to the little editing windows here. And then from here, what I need to add in is that last slide that covers a nice clean text layout. So we've gone for kind of a column effect with a reference back to that original article. So the way that we do this one is blank page, no background, and we'll grab the text that we want. So we'll copy that, paste that one in place. And this one, we've reused that title again, so we've made that nice and big. And then the text off to the side is a mixture of stuff that I've written myself and a reference back to part of that article. So we'll copy that and paste that in place. Now it's up to you with the referencing aspects. It's up to you how you want to manage it. The cleanest method and the one that I prefer is to use a numeric system. You can have numeric based on the entire module, which is pretty common with academic articles if you're looking at different pages. Some people use it per slide. So if I had 2 references, I might have number 1 and number 2. It's up to you. You can look at different ways to handle it. The way that I manage it is by putting a number against wherever the reference is supposed to end and making that into a superscript. So it makes the one smaller and pops it up to the top of the line. And then I will come down to the bottom and say number 1 is this is the reference. You can look up how to write references appropriately online. There's heaps of different resources on that. So you write your reference however you see fit. The beautiful thing about having online references is that you can link back to the article in its entirety. So for this one, I'll grab the URL of the original article and paste that for the title. So the title needs to be italicized, and then you create a link with this link hyperlink. Pop the URL for the article in there and click OK. And now I have a nice kind of reference back to the original article itself. So usually with your references, they tend to be much, much smaller than the text because you don't want them to stand out as much. And for this example, I've also put just a really light gray background on it just to give it a little bit of weight down the bottom. So for that one, all that I've done is add a shape as a rectangle and made it kind of wide and skinny. And then the background color that I've applied to it is actually just black, but with some opacity associated with it. So we've set the opacity at 5%. Click OK. Not on text, sorry. Let's try that again. Black, and then 5%. And I want to actually move that so that it sits in the background. If I left it in front, you wouldn't be able to click on that link. So you want to make sure that that's sent to the back, and then center up your link. And the other thing that I've got are some internal hyperlinks to this site on cloud appreciation, which is actually quite cool, I will have to admit. You should dig around and look into it if you're interested in it. But this read more about them here links directly to their main part of the site. And then they have a whole section on an email that you can get as a member for a cloud a day. So that's a link to a different area of their site. But again, same thing. You just grab wherever you want to link them to, highlight the text you want, and then paste your link URL in there. Now, while you're doing your links, I'll point out a couple of things here. So you can send someone to a new tab. So this will open a new tab on your browser. I rarely ever use same tab, because what that means is that it actually overwrites the lesson that that user will be on. So I very, very rarely will ever use that unless I really need that desired effect. You can also get the system to pull up a specific image. So I can link this text to pull up an image of a cloud that I may already have in the system. You can also create a page jump, which sends users to other slides within that module. And then you can also download. So download would be usually around some sort of a Word document or a PDF that you want someone to download. So these links panels are actually really, really handy to create different effect with your content. And it's something that you can link to specific text within a cell or to an image. So sometimes we'll make an image of a button and we'll create links against that image of a button. But that's roughly a really quick rendition of how I've created my module on clouds. Super exciting. I will now pause for questions. And I will also point out after this, we'll get a list of links together for you guys on the TEDx videos, the Unsplash, anywhere that I've grabbed material from, I'll make sure to send you a link to it. But besides that, does anyone have any questions about anything we've gone through today or anything you might be having problems with in general?
Hi, Lauren. It's Mario here. I'm probably not just the oldest person at this little gig, but I've probably also been doing this stuff, as Graham might attest, longer than most, I guess. This has been the best session I've attended since you've been going. It's been absolutely brilliant. The other thing, it could well be my age, but I don't think I'm going to be able to remember all this stuff, even though I've taken copious notes. But I know that you actually send it through, a recording of it, so you can bet your bottom dollar that I'll be watching that again to just pick up some of the things. But I just wanted to say thanks so much. It was bloody awesome. There's already stuff that I'm going to be changing inside our modules, so thank you.
Thank you for that. You're going to make me cry. That's lovely. Thank you very much. Right.
Well, that shut the house down, didn't it? Sorry about that.
Everyone's afraid to ask questions now. Anything from anyone else?
Is there any sort of guidelines or any way to like center things perfectly within the program?
Yes. Now, that is something that I actually want to take to our developers, oddly enough, because that's a problem that I run into quite often. I don't have a really good quick way of aligning things on a slide. I can align stuff to other things, but not on the slide itself. So sometimes what I'll do, I'll show you my way to cheat to get around it until we have a better way of doing it. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll make a text cell like such, and I'll make it the width of that cell, kind of like a ruler, and then I'll use that as a thing to center other items on. So let's say I want this text down here to be centered as well. So I'll grab both of those, go to cell layout, align, and center. And then I can kind of realign them as I need to. So let's, as an example, let me move that off to the side. So if I center them against one another, like so, now they're in line with one another. So then I'll move everything across so that that ruler slide up here that I've got, or the ruler cell up here that I have, is centered on the screen. And then I know that this is centered as well. So that's kind of the cheat that I use occasionally to get around that problem. But that is a feature request that I'm going to put forward to the developers as well.
Cool. That's cool. Thank you.
Very good question. Right, guys. Well, if no one's got anything else, I reckon we can call it today. Feel free to stay online and chat. We'll stop the recording and then you can talk about whatever you want.